Hello, this is Dr. Donna Burnett. In this lesson, we will discuss Chapter 8, Poultry. Let's get started. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to list the different classifications of commonly consumed poultry, describe how myoglobin affects poultry meat composition, discuss the various factors important to purchasing poultry, summarize how to prepare poultry using dry heat and moist heat preparation methods, and record the recommended storage temperature and times for poultry. Ready-to-eat poultry is classified according to age, sex, and species. When we say ready-to-eat, in this case, we're talking about a bird that's been dressed and ready to actually either cut up and prepare or prepare whole, like a roasted chicken. It's already ready to go. No feathers. Here in Table 8-1, you see classifications of poultry by age and sex, and also the species. So here you see from left to right, classification by age. You have under 4 weeks, 5 weeks, under 10 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks, under 4 months, over 10 months, or over 10 months in a male is a rooster versus a hen. And here you can see that the younger chickens are classified as broilers or fryers, roasters, capons, and Cornish game hens. When looking at turkeys, we have a similar classification system by sex and age. You have a fryer roaster, which is either male or female, but it's under 12 weeks. You have a young hen, a young tom. Those are both under 6 months. You have a yearling hen, a yearling tom. These are both under 15 months. And then a mature or old turkey can be either male or female, and it's over 15 months. Then you look down to the duck species. You have ducklings, roasters, and mature or old ducks. Ducklings are under 8 weeks. Roasters are under 16 weeks. And mature or old ducks are older than 6 months. Continuing on, you have classifications for goose species, guinea species, and pigeon species. And I'll refer you to Table 8-1 to look at those classification categories. The composition of poultry: turkeys have both white meat and dark meat. Lightness or darkness depends on the amount of myoglobin present in the muscle. Here we have a diagram that shows you the part of the chicken or poultry that various cuts come from. So if you go to the store and you buy chicken, you'll buy it by cut, or you can buy a whole bird. In this diagram, we see where the tenders, the fillets, the breasts, the tenderloins, and the strips come from. Then we see down where there's the drumstick, the leg. Then there's the leg and thigh piece. And you have the drumette, the wings, and the wing tips, and the tail and the back. Poultry is inspected by the USDA for wholesomeness and sanitation. This is mandatory. But in addition, there's voluntary grading. The USDA is contracted to grade. We have grades A, B, and C. In Figure 8-1, we see an example of a grade A chicken, and then we see a grade B chicken, which is not quite as meaty as grade A. It may occasionally have cuts or tears in the skin, and overall it's not as attractive as grade A. Grade A is fully fleshed and meaty, uniform fat covering, which is the skin, well-formed, good, clean appearance. This grade is most often sold at retail. That's normally what you will see in the store. Let's take a look now at how these grading operations run.
At a chicken processing plant, after the feathers are removed from the birds, they move to what's known as the evisceration line. Chickens today are very healthy and uniform in quality and size, allowing this part of the process to be almost entirely automated. First, the internal organs are removed and a high-powered vacuum cleans out the inside of the bird. Next, under a modernized or HIMP system, trained company personnel examine every bird for quality and wholesomeness and may remove a broken wing, feather, or other defect that would impact the quality of the chicken. These employees go through extensive training, both classroom and hands-on. This is the point in the process where traditional inspection differs from the modernized or the HIMP system. In a traditional inspection system, you might have 2 USDA inspectors here, each with trained company employees as helpers. These USDA inspectors perform the same tasks by identifying the defects, and then together with a company helper may remove any defect, such as a broken wing, feather, or a bruise that would impact the quality but not the safety of the chicken. Under a modernized system like this one of the USDA inspectors is moved to the end of the evisceration line and still inspects every bird after it has been eviscerated and cleaned, rather than looking at it in the middle of the process. The other USDA inspectors are available to do more food safety-related tasks, like testing for salmonella, instead of focusing on other consumer-related issues, like broken wings and inspecting for bruises, which are really a company's responsibility. Next, birds are thoroughly washed inside and out to remove any possible loose materials. Another plant employee then removes any defects that the previous 3 have marked and checks every bird for anything that may have been missed. Again, in the modernized or HIMP system, a USDA inspector is stationed at the end of this line and inspects every bird after the employees have, and after all the steps are taken to clean it. This inspector has the ability to shut any portion of the line down if they see a problem. After each bird is inspected by USDA, trained company quality assurance and food safety personnel inspect the birds once again for quality and wholesomeness and document the results. USDA does this testing too. Each chicken is rinsed one last time before it is chilled and moves on to second processing, where it might be cut into parts, deboned, or packaged whole. As you see, there are several steps taken both before and after USDA inspection to ensure the quality and safety of the chicken. And this visual inspection is only one piece of the whole inspection process. The chicken is also tested for bacteria like salmonella. It is analyzed for any residues, and it may pass through a metal detector. The whole process is documented and verified by USDA. Whether chicken plants operate under traditional poultry inspection or the modernized system, the end result is the same. Rigorous food safety standards are applied to all chicken products, and these products must meet or exceed these safety standards set forth by USDA before they reach your plate.
When you purchase poultry, there are several types and styles of poultry you can purchase. You can buy a dressed bird. You can buy a ready-to-cook bird. You can buy a bird that's already been pre-cut into halves, breasts, drumsticks, thighs, wings. You also will see quarters, where you have a thigh and a leg together. You'll also see ground poultry. You can buy processed poultry, and also meats made from mechanically deboned poultry. And here, sometimes this will be your ultra-processed poultry. Hormones and antibiotics. Well, the USDA does not allow the use of hormones in raising chickens. So if the package says no hormones ever, well, they couldn't use them even if they wanted to. So that's a little bit of a marketing thing. Also for antibiotics, sometimes they have to give antibiotics if it looks like there's going to be an infected bird that might infect other birds. So that's not forbidden. Sometimes you'll see no antibiotics or hormones ever. In that case, then they're testing that they don't use antibiotics. Processed poultry can have additives, which are not allowed in fresh chicken, and these additives may be contained in processed chicken, and that's why I was saying a moment ago about ultra-processed chicken. So, when you buy chicken nuggets or chicken strips and they're pre-formed, ready to cook, that's what we call processed poultry. And labeling is regulated by USDA, and that's why you see it's relatively consistent. So what are common labeling terms for poultry products? This will be interesting coming into Thanksgiving time when we sometimes buy turkeys and hams, but let's talk about poultry right now. So if the label says it's basted or self-basted, that means the poultry products are injected or marinated with a solution. The listed ingredients will usually consist of butter or some other type of fat, broth, stock or water, plus spices, flavor enhancers, and other approved substances. The maximum amount of solution they can use for bone-in poultry is 3% and 8% for boneless chicken. Mechanically separated poultry is a paste-like poultry product that's produced by forcing bones with attached edible tissue through a sieve-like device under high pressure to separate the two. Some optional labeling: free range or free roaming. This is where poultry is allowed access to the outside. Here on slide 8 of 10, we have table 8-2, where we have common labeling terms for poultry products continued. Optional labeling includes free range or free roaming, which is where poultry are allowed access to the outside. Fresh poultry means it's never frozen, which poultry freezes at around 26 degrees Fahrenheit. Natural is a labeling term that means a product contains no artificial ingredient or added color and is only minimally processed, and then no antibiotics added may be used on labels if poultry were raised without antibiotics. Chemical free is not allowed to be used on labeling. No hormones. Hormones are not allowed in raising hogs or poultry. Therefore, the claim of no hormones added is not allowed on labels for pork or poultry products unless followed by federal regulations prohibit the use of hormone. And that's to keep labeling standardized. How much poultry should you purchase? You need to account for the inedible bone and also the unwanted fat, which means you need to purchase a little bit more than you would think per serving. About a ½ pound per serving for most poultry would be enough, and there's some variations here. For goose, you want to purchase slightly over a ½ pound per serving. For duck, a pound per serving. And for small turkeys under 16 pounds, a pound per serving, because you do have to account for all of the bone. For common broiler fryers, those are usually under, those are 3½ pounds or under. All of these you would purchase a pound per person. And then chickens that are under 2½ pounds are really less economical because of the amount of bone per meat ratio. Larger turkeys, which are 18 plus pounds, they offer a greater yield per pound, and that's good to know. And they are the most economical. The most economical way to purchase poultry is whole and ready to cook. Let's take a look at how to cut up a chicken. And I call this CSI, Chicken Scene Investigation.
Everyone, it's Natasha of natashaskitchen.com. I'm going to show you the easy way to cut a whole chicken. This will save you money, and you can use the leftover carcass to make the most flavorful chicken stock. All you need is a sharp knife and a whole chicken. Pat the chicken dry with paper towels to make it easier to work with, and you'll start by cutting off the chicken legs. Slice only through the skin just below the chicken breast. Now pull the leg away and pop the bone out. You'll cut just behind that bone right through the joint, and it should separate easily. Repeat with the second side, keeping as much of the meat on the chicken leg as possible. When you're cutting a chicken, if your knife has a lot of resistance when you're trying to cut through, you're probably hitting a bone, so move your knife around slightly until it goes through easily. Keeping the chicken breast side up, we're going to remove the wings. Use your fingers to feel for the joint, and you're going to cut right through that. Repeat with the second wing, and it does give you a little more control if you pull up on the wing as you're cutting. To remove the chicken breast, place the chicken on its side. You'll see on each side there's a fat line running down from top to bottom. The fat lines are really a road map for cutting the chicken. Use some kitchen shears to cut right through that. You're going to snip right through the rib cage. separating the backbone from the breastbone. I usually cook with boneless chicken breast, so to debone the chicken breast, slice right down the center through the skin. Locate the breastbone in the center, then cut the chicken breast away from the bone. To get a clean cut, don't saw back and forth, but use long strokes. And cut all the way down, which should completely debone the chicken breast. To separate the drumstick from the thigh, flip it over and cut along the fat line, and you should cut right between the joints. If you feel resistance, shift your knife around until it slides through easily. To debone the thigh, locate the bone, then cut the meat away from it on both sides. Get a firm grip on one end of the chicken bone and cut the bone away from the meat with long, careful strokes. I hope you guys found this tutorial super helpful. If you did, give me a great big thumbs up below. And in the comments below, let me know if you have any burning kitchen questions, any how-tos that you'd like to see a video for. Also, just so you know, our chicken was not harmed in the making of this video. Hey, before you go, for more cooking tutorials, check these out right over here. And click below to subscribe. And when you do, click that little bell icon. That means you'll never miss another one of our tutorials or recipes. We'll see you later.
So that's how you cut up a chicken. And here are some still shots where you can follow along what you just saw on the video and the rest of that. Okay, some safety tips. Do not wash raw poultry prior to preparation, mostly because then you get all the germs in your sink and there's no reason to wash it. Thaw frozen poultry in the refrigerator, and you want to thaw it at the lowest point of the refrigerator so that it can't drip down on any other food items, because then, of course, they would be contaminated. Prepare and cook your stuffing separately if you're planning to do turkey stuffing. Don't put it in the bird. That has to do with the temperature that the internal cavity has to reach to properly cook your stuffing, and it may not work out exactly. It can set up some bacteria in there while it's not at the proper temperature. It takes some time to reach that temperature when it's inside the bird. The bird's usually cold. So, and then store your poultry in the refrigerator during brining. Again, how to thaw frozen poultry. You want to thaw it in the refrigerator. You have to plan ahead. It usually takes about a day for a 3.5 pound chicken to thaw, and 1.5 to 5 days for a turkey to thaw. You cannot go and buy a frozen turkey the night before Thanksgiving. You cannot possibly thaw it out safely. Do not thaw poultry at room temperature or in a microwave or under running cold water. Again, the temperature differential between the outside and the inside of the turkey is just unacceptable. Once thawed, remove the package of internal organs from the cavity and rinse the cavity thoroughly. Sometimes people use those organs to make giblets or gravy. Why is there so much concern about food safety in poultry preparation? This is your discussion activity question 1. Discussion activity question 1. Why is there so much concern about food safety in poultry preparation? That's something for you to think about. Here we have poultry preparation, slide 5 of 14, thawing a turkey. The rule of thumb is about 24 hours of thawing for every 5 pounds of whole turkey. And here we see a chart, this is table 8-3, of how much time it takes to thaw your turkey, depending on how much it weighs. If you get a big bird, a 20 to 24 pound bird, it's going to take 4 to 5 days to thaw that. How do we know when poultry is done? It's not done until it reaches a minimum temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. You also can look for a color change. When the skin on oven roasted chicken or turkey reaches a golden brown color, that is a clue, but you still need to take the temperature. And also by touch, if you press firmly with 1 or 2 fingers, and the well done bird's flesh will feel firm, not soft. And here we have an image of how you take the temperature. You have to take it away from a bone, and you have to insert the thermometer up until the notch that's on there that indicates what part of the thermometer has the sensor. And as you see here, it's safer to prepare stuffing in a pan rather than in the bird's cavity. In Table 8-4, we see a time and weight chart for preparing turkey, and this is if you prepare it at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. You have your weight. There's 4 different weight ranges, whether it's unstuffed or stuffed. This is if it's cooked in an open roasting pan, and if it's cooked in an oven cooking bag, it will be slightly less. Now here you must realize that if you're using an oven cooking bag, you're using moist heat preparation, and if it's in an open roasting pan, that's dry heat. And there will be a difference in the texture and the taste of the turkey depending on how you decide to prepare it. So dry heat preparation would be roasting, and if you do that, you're going to have to baste the bird because it will tend to dry out. If you use a stuffing, it's really best to cook that outside of the bird, and then you need to be able to carve that bird. If you broil or grill it, that's another way that you use dry heat. And then some people like to have a fried turkey. They'll even air fry it. If you do stuff your bird, you want to protect it from scorching. And so this is a good way to do that. And it's essentially sealing up the cavity so that the dry heat isn't hitting the stuffing. Trussing is when you use a string, a butcher string, to tie the legs and the tail in so that you are sealing that cavity off to some extent. And it keeps the bird together while it's baking or roasting. Now you're going to carve the bird. You want to make sure that you steady the chicken on a sanitary cutting board, and then you begin by removing the leg. And here you see in some still shots of where you would cut through the leg to dislodge the joint, and then cut all the way through. And then you see in figure 3, you separate the breast meat. You want to brace the chicken with a fork. So a lot of times a carving set will have a long fork and a knife. You brace the chicken with the fork and slice just inside the kneel bone. Here in picture 3, you see how you separate the breast meat. You're going to use a fork, and generally if you buy a carving set, you'll see that there is a long fork like you see in this picture, and the knife, a carving knife. And so you're going to brace the chicken with the fork and then slice just inside that bone. You want to move the knife downward, pulling and cutting the breast section away from the rib cage. And continuing on, you're going to slice down between the thigh and the breast. And here you have some pictures to see how that looks. You push the thigh down and bend it under if necessary to disjoint the bone. Cut through the rest of the meat and any cartilage to separate it from the breast. Separate the thigh from the drumstick. And this is similar to the video you saw about how to cut up a raw chicken. Okay, now you're going to slice the drumstick and the thigh, which is not in the picture. You're going to remove the wing, and then you're going to remove the skin back and slice the breast meat. And then you want to lift each slice using the knife and fork. Okay, and these are some good pictures of how that happens. You also can use moist heat preparation with poultry. That would be braising, stewing, poaching, microwaving. Let's talk about storing poultry. Raw poultry is a major source of Campylobacter and Salmonella. It can be stored under refrigeration at 40 degrees or lower for up to 3 days. And you want to store it in the original packaging. If it's frozen, a whole bird can be frozen at 0 degrees or less for 6 to 12 months. Leftover cooked poultry can be frozen and held at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or less for 4 months. To prevent cross-contamination in your refrigerator, All prepared food should be refrigerated and covered in containers to guard against salmonella. Raw poultry should not be stored over ready to eat or cooked food, or really over any other raw meat. And that's because raw poultry is going to have to be cooked to a higher temperature than pork or fish or beef. And so it has to get up to 165 degrees. So if raw poultry drips down on anything under it, well, then it would have to be cooked to 165 degrees. So that's why you always put your raw poultry on the lowest point of the refrigerator. Okay? And that wraps up our discussion of Chapter 8, Poultry. We have some useful websites you can explore. And then, in summary, we listed the different classifications of commonly consumed poultry. We described how myoglobin affects poultry meat composition. We discussed the various factors important to purchasing poultry. We summarized how to prepare poultry using dry heat and moist heat preparation methods, and recorded the recommended storage temperature and times for poultry. Now, as far as the myoglobin, we didn't go into that in detail here, but that is something that you will read in your textbook. Okay, so make sure you do read your textbook. Okay, that's all for now.